Welcome to Get the Balance Right, a podcast for creative entrepreneurs and firm owners looking to grow their business in a healthy, sustainable way. I'm your host, Heather Zeitzwolf. I'm a CPA and I serve this community with coaching and profit advising. Please join me as I talk with leaders in digital media, branding, advertising, design, marketing, and SEO. Hey everybody, welcome to another segment of Get the Balance Right podcast. On today's show, we have Elizabeth Case. She is the woman behind Yellow Dog Consulting. She offers sales and marketing for small business owners who don't love sales and marketing. She also knows all about email marketing, and that is the subject of today's show. I really enjoyed picking her brain about this because she uses MailChimp, and so do I, and I've been clueless about MailChimp and have been reluctantly not sending out a newsletter, and from my discussion with her, she has inspired me to send out a newsletter. So if you're on my mailing list, guess what? You're getting a newsletter soon. Elizabeth is a pop culture nerd. We totally hit it off. She has in her office Wonder Woman and Boba Fett, and I was like, she is my kind of person. So this is a really fun interview, and it went a little bit long just because just having so much fun. Please enjoy our conversation about email marketing. Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming to my podcast.
Absolutely, Heather. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So for people that don't know anything about you, or maybe they've heard you on a podcast before, but can you tell a little bit about yourself and also your company, Yellow Dog Consulting, and maybe the story behind that name?
Sure. So I started Yellow Dog Consulting 9 years ago. I lived outside of Seattle with my husband, and we had adopted this wonderful yellow lab named Hank. And then we found ourselves paying dog walkers and dog sitters and doggy daycares to take care of him. I was commuting, and I don't know if you know anything about the Seattle traffic, but there's only 4-letter words just to describe it. And I was tired of working for other people. I had gone to work for a marketing firm. I was doing sales and marketing for a sales and marketing firm. And so they needed to be doing their own sales. And the marketing stuff, once I got that automated and set up and scheduled, they could do it themselves. And at the same time, all my small business owner friends needed marketing help and were asking. And the company I was working with didn't want to work with clients, solopreneurs, and small business owners. I renegotiated the terms of my employment and started Yellow Dog Consulting to work with those small business owners who needed help with their marketing efforts. And so I've had the company for 9 years now, and I really have morphed that into a lot of email marketing. Really what I find with my clients is they need to be connecting and communicating with their network on a regular basis. And so I think email is the best way to do that. It's a great long-term follow-up tool for prospects. It's a great connection and just a touch point, especially right now during the pandemic. The more you can get into people's inboxes and check on them and let them know that you're alive and kicking it in business, the better.
I really struggle with that because I'm on so many email lists, and then I get emails from different people. And I almost feel bad that I don't open them sometimes because I really like these people. And I know that maybe their open rate is going to get lower because I'm not opening it, but I get overwhelmed by that. So then I feel like I don't want to do that to others. I am reluctant to send out emails, but I know I'm missing out.
You and everyone else in the world feels that way. That is the best pushback I get is I don't open newsletters. So why would I expect somebody to open my newsletter? And what do I have to say? You have stuff to say. You are a smart, intelligent, funny, fun person, and there's things out there. And so we just need to figure out what the right fit is for what you want to say and what your audience needs to hear. Here's the deal. You're not opening emails. I'm not opening emails, and people pay me to read their emails and send their emails. But a good open rate is somewhere between 20 and 30%.
Oh,
that's super low. And that seems, so why am I spending all this time and money working on this if only of 1,000 people, only 200 to 300 are opening it? That's okay. The right people open it at the right time. So my favorite story is I was sending my newsletter out when I first started Yellow Dog Consulting, and I had sent out, it was the 3rd newsletter, I remember. And this guy responded to my newsletter, and he was like, hey, I had no idea you were doing marketing. We were just talking about marketing and needing somebody to come into the office. The thing is, If he got that email, he got the last 2 emails. And so it was just the right time and the right place. We worked together for 2 years. That was the beginning of my company. He just emailed me 2 months ago. He had replied to my newsletter that he has been on for 9 years of Yellow Dog Consulting and said, hey, I have a potential client that I think actually needs to work with you first. That is how an email newsletter works. Like it's there. He knows. He doesn't need to talk to me very often. He's doing his own thing now. Everything's good. Because my newsletter shows up in his inbox every month, he doesn't open it all the time. He sees it when he goes to delete it. It's, oh, Elizabeth's still alive. Great. He can delete that and go on with his day. The right people will find you at the right time. And so if you can be consistent with it, that's what's most important. So that when a pandemic occurs and you're desperate, you don't have to be desperate. You just have to continue to communicate with your network and say, I'm still here. I didn't go anywhere. Here's how I can help you right now. I don't recommend only reaching out to people when you have something to pitch. So like sending out a blast of, here's my new thing, buy my stuff. If I only ever hear from you when you're asking me for money, I'm gonna unsubscribe from that. And so that's where that regular communication helps, because then when it comes time to say, I have this awesome new product and you should buy it, people are like, you're awesome. You've never steered me wrong. You always give me great free content, resources, tools, tips, whatever. Of course, I'm going to give you my money now because you've earned the right to be heard.
You're a quirky person like myself. I like to see people's quirky personalities come out. I noticed on your newsletter, I think it was a newsletter I got from you, that you had some pop culture references of things that you like. I personally I like that, to see that in someone that I'm going to do business with. So how have you worked that in, and does your clients also utilize that as well?
They do. One of the first things I started doing was a pop culture roundup. So on the last business day of the month, I write a blog post, and it's everything that I read, watched, and listened to over the past month that I think people should read, watch, and listen to. I deviate every once in a while, like if I've gone to live theater or gone to a concert, or mostly it's podcasts that I listen to, or an article that I might have read, but typically it's books or comic books. I am a junior high boy in my spare time. We're on Zoom, so you can see my office with my Boba Fett helmet and my Wonder Woman and all my fun Star Wars nerdy comic book stuff. And so I love to recommend pop culture to people. I just was on a call this morning with a client, and he was asking me about my Wonder Woman sign, which led us to show him elect Moira Rose for town council sign, which led us down a wormhole of Schitt's Creek, which is a perfect thing to be doing with my clients. Like, you have to be a nerdy person with them, and they need to be their authentic self in their newsletter as well. Clients that are in recovery, we want to make sure that we're talking correctly about that and politely about that. A big conversation I've been having with clients right now. In March, we started having those conversations about how do you talk about quarantine and COVID, and how does that affect your business and how you interact with people. And if one more person says they care about, if one more CEO sends an email saying, we really care about you right now, here's 10% off, or don't forget to buy stuff from us, it feels absent if you haven't heard from them. And so it's really about just building those relationships and being yourself in it. And so how do we make that work for you? And right now, a lot of what that conversation is around the Black Lives Matter movement. We've seen that. And how do you show up? And what do you need to say? And so for some clients, they're having that conversation about, I don't want to say anything. I don't want to alienate people. And others are like, I can't not say anything. And how do I continue to say something without making it look obvious? So so for me, I'm continuing to do that work. And so you see that in my pop culture roundup, and the changes to the podcasts I'm listening to, and to the books that I'm reading, and to the Netflix series that my husband and I are watching. You're seeing that and that's where I show that. So I don't have to be like, hey, I'm still doing this work, and here's me, ally of the year. But it's finding those right ways to express yourself.
Yeah. And it also seems like then you will attract the people that are more in line with your values as well.
Exactly.
Hey there, this is Heather. Besides being a podcast host, I'm also a CPA and profit advisor. I help creative agencies grow in a sustainable manner. Right now, I'm offering a complimentary healthcare check of your business. So if you go down to the show notes, you'll see a link and you can sign up. All right, now back to the show.
utilize MailChimp. That's your preference. You like that platform, and what are the benefits of that?
When I started Yellow Dog Consulting 9 years ago, I used MailChimp because it was free for up to 2,000 email addresses. I had terrible list building habits. I had collected a bunch of email addresses from all my years of networking. And so I just sent them here's Yellow Dog Consulting, hire me. And hey, that's not how we do this. You have to ask permission for people to join your list. So I got kicked out of MailChimp. So I used another tool for about a year, and that was fine. But then I went back to MailChimp, cleaned up my list, cleaned up my communication habits. And I am kind of ride or die with MailChimp these days. I'm actually a MailChimp expert. So if you use MailChimp and you get stuck and you search for people to talk to, I'm one of the experts that pops up to help you with your MailChimp. But I'm a certified MailChimp partner as well. So I have a fancy badge on my website. But I love MailChimp for that reason, that it's free for up to 2,000 email addresses, which for most small business owners starting out, your list isn't that big, and it's a great place to start.
I have clients that are individuals, and then I have clients that are businesses. Is the way in MailChimp to differentiate those lists so that I can send out targeted emails to one or the other?
Yes, absolutely. So MailChimp has had a lot of changes over the last couple of years. And one of the things they got very clear about was instead of having groups and segments and multiple lists, they want you to have one list. And the reason you want to have one list is so that people aren't having to unsubscribe from 5 different lists. That's rude and annoying. And so what you want to do is you tag them. So I just did this for a client where they have regions and they have industries. And so we tag them by their region and by their industry, and then we tag them together. And then we know, okay, if this person who runs the Oregon office is sending the email, we want to click on these people in Oregon, but we don't want everybody in Oregon because this doesn't pertain to some industries where it does to others. But yes, tagging is a great feature that MailChimp has. And you can also create groups and segments. Something that I've done, I volunteer with Indivisible Hillsboro here in Hillsboro, Oregon, where I live. And in Indivisible, we have lots of ways for people to get involved. And so we've created kind of a checklist. And so you can go in and update your preference and say, hey, I'm interested in canvassing for people, knocking on doors. I'm interested in making phone calls. I'm interested in sending postcards. I'm interested in helping out behind the scenes. So if a candidate comes and says, I would love Indivisible Hillsboro to help with my campaign, right now what I really need is phone banking, we can send an email just to the people who have said, I'll make phone calls, and say, hey, if you can make phone calls Saturday, here's people who can do that.
So if you integrate a questionnaire, then you can have that actually tag your database for you? Is that? Oh, wow.
Oh, it's pretty cool. So, yep, you can select people. So like for you, you would say, yep, you're a client, you're a business, you're an individual. But you could also have some outward facing tags for them that are, okay, you like to hear from me daily, weekly, monthly. You like to hear about these kinds of things, not these kinds of things. You can segment that and like drill it down as far as you want. It's cool.
Yeah. And then, like you said, that way it's only on one list. And so when they unsubscribe, I hate when you have to unsubscribe to 5 different lists.
Seriously.
And then it always feels like you still get emails from these people because maybe there's one list you didn't unsubscribe from.
I just got that the other day. I'm like, I swear I unsubscribed from you last week. Why am I still hearing from you?
So MailChimp takes care of all of the legal aspects of that?
Yeah. And you need to be sending through an email provider that has your address included, part of the Canned Spam Act, where you are required to have an unsubscribe button and a physical address where somebody could send you mail and say, dude, I said, stop like sending me stuff. Leave me alone. Yeah.
Oh, so you need a physical address. It can't just be an email address.
Correct. Yeah, you'll notice at the bottom of newsletters that there's your physical address shows up on there now. And it can be your home address, a P.O. box if you don't want that information, your home address to be public, co-working space that you have a mailbox at, whatever it might be.
That's good to know because I think sometimes I just go down there when I use MailChimp and just get rid of stuff, but maybe I shouldn't be doing that.
It'll force some of that for you. So it'll say, hey, you have to have this to hit send. Sorry, dude.
Can you explain, I think I know the answer to this, but for those that don't know, what the difference is between a landing page and a regular website or a web page?
So landing pages are one thing only. I want you to do, this is the one thing I want you to do on this page. Where a website is take a look around, see what's going on over here, check me out, all the ways I'm awesome. You can read my blog, you can see the services I offer, you can sign up for stuff, you can maybe download something for free, whatever. A landing page is, I want you to sign up for this webinar or download this PDF or buy this thing or register for this course. It's just one thing. And so everything around that landing page leads to that. MailChimp is pretty cool. Actually, they have landing pages that are included with MailChimp. So you can create a landing page you can internally tag people with. On the back end, you can categorize and tag people with it. Right. They sign up for this webinar and then it tags them over here. So then you can do proper follow-up.
To look at your database of names in MailChimp, I think there's a page where you can do that, but do you normally export it into Excel, take a look at these things and sort it, or how does that work?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways internally with MailChimp. You can look at your audience and segment them down and see, I just want to see everybody who's tagged with this. I just want to see everybody who has said, yes, they want to make phone calls for candidates or they want to canvas. Like you can just search your list that way so you don't have to export it.
Do you need to have a paid version of that?
No, that's part of the free version.
With a landing page, can you also include links to your website in that?
Yeah, you can do all sorts of fun stuff. You can direct people to your podcast, a different download.
So when you're working with a client and you're going to figure out how you're going to maybe promote a podcast or promote a webinar, do you have to map out all the different landing pages, response pages, or is that something you have that all dialed in and use the same thing for each client? How does that work?
Yeah, it really depends on what all they need. If they have a paid version or a free version. If you have a free version of MailChimp, you can only send one automated email. If you create a landing page, you can only send that one email. If you have a paid version, you could do a drip campaign. So you could send them 3 or 4 over the course of however long you want that to last.
Hey there, this is Heather. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. And if you are, if you wouldn't mind, please hit the subscribe button now. That way you'll never miss an episode. All right, now back to the podcast.
MailChimp really tries to make it easy for you to DIY. And so if you are creative, you can say, all right, I know what I want. I've got a designer who's made stuff for me, or I'm a designer. I made a killer header and I know my colors and I want to do it myself. They also have pre-done ones with some images and colors that complement the work, that if you're like, I want something prettier than just this basic stuff and I'm not good at it, and you can play around with the colors and the images that are in there as well. Most of my clients, we build their template for them where it's, all right, a header and design. I don't typically use those pre-done templates, but they are awesome.
One time I had a problem where I put, it was a button on my email that I sent out, and for some reason it didn't work. Couldn't figure that one out.
Yeah, you got to test everything. So one of the things that I love about MailChimp is they have a link checker. So when you're building your newsletter, you should preview it, make sure it all looks right. You should send yourself a test to make sure it delivers. And then you want to test those links. And there is a tool in there called Link Checker. And so I always do that to make sure every link works before I send it out. And I test that for my clients. And if I have an issue, I'll edit it and change it up.
Didn't know about Link Checker.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
What about using MailChimp for your sales funnel?
Sure. With the paid version, you have automation that you can use. Click this, if this, then this. And you can really drill down in an automation. If they click on this link, then you send them this email. If you click on this link, you send them this email. If they don't click on anything, you leave them alone or you send them this email. And you can change up who gets what based on what they've done and all their activities behind the scenes. So it's really great for a sales funnel if you're trying to figure out what's going on with your audience and trying to get to know them better. I use it as a follow-up tool. And that's like the main way I use my email newsletter is a follow-up tool for me. It's that way to be continually connecting with my network when I'm not selling them something. But every prospect that I talk to, if we've had a conversation about working together, they get added into my database and they get added into my newsletter. And that way, it's just that continual touch point. So they know that I'm alive and kicking.
And how do most people get people onto their email list? Be some sort of downloadable PDF or something like that. What do you work with your clients to do?
First thing is making sure there's a subscribe button on your website. I am shocked at how many people forget to do that or hide it so you can't find it. And then really downloads are a great way to do that. So if you have some sort of free download, I have a monthly marketing calendar that's free on my website. So there's a pop-up when you go to yellowdogconsulting.com. It says, download my free monthly marketing calendar. So I do the free downloads, which is a big way that people do that. I also say all of your clients should be getting your newsletter. And there is that implied consent that MailChimp says is okay to just automatically add them. They're paying you, they're doing work with you, they need to be hearing from you. Prospects, like I was saying, I always make sure that my prospects at some point in the sales funnel are getting that. And then I also make sure my referral partners are getting my newsletter. The reason, and I always say to people when I talk to them, do you have a newsletter? Can you sign me up for it? Because that's going to be the best way for me to remember what you're up to and to easily recommend you to people. So I have conversations, and then the next day I get the newsletter and, I was just talking to somebody about you yesterday, or this is the person I mentioned to you last week when we were on the call together thing.
And what is the cadence of these newsletters? What do you recommend to your clients?
I recommend monthly. You don't have time to read something more often than that. And everybody's a little different, right? So I have one client, she does 2 podcast episodes a month, and we send out show notes for that. And then on top of that, she does a Saturday morning, she calls them a CLERP, and it's a word she made up from years ago. And it's just 3 things, and here's her 3 things for the week. And so sometimes it's a podcast or an article or a book or a TV show or just something she's thinking about. She bought a new spice rack a couple of months ago and posted about that, just random stuff, but it's part of her personality and her brand, and it works. Most of my clients, I wouldn't recommend communicating that often, but her numbers show that it works, and her audience likes hearing from her like that. But for the most part, monthly is a great place to start.
So with MailChimp, is it possible to pull things like I want to say an RSS feed? I'm not really sure if that would be the terminology for it, but for instance, if you have a podcast, can it pull that information into the email? And if you have a video, can it pull that information, or do you have to actually put the links, or how does that work in MailChimp?
You used to be able to automate an RSS feed. They may have changed some stuff up with that, but yes, you can do that. For video, to embed video, it needs to be YouTube or Vimeo are the only 2 platforms that they host. We can use other ones. Typically what I do, if the video is living somewhere else on the interwebs, I'll just screenshot an image of it, and it doesn't play the video in the email. It takes you, that's what it does, is it takes a screenshot of the YouTube page, of the YouTube video itself, or Vimeo video. And when you click on it, it takes you to the video to watch it there.
Embed like a Loom video or any of those kind of things?
No, you can embed a GIF though. So if you are wanting something nerdy.
If someone wanted to hire you to help them with their mail campaign, what are all the aspects that you will help people with? Are you doing social media too, or what are all the things that you offer?
So fun fact about me, I am the marketing consultant who refuses to join Facebook. So I don't manage social media for my clients. And so I have a checklist that I start with my clients. We sit down and we figure out what needs to go into your regular monthly newsletter. What do we need to be talking to your audience about? And then we have a schedule. When do we want this to go out? First week of the month, the 10th of the month, the second Tuesday, the first Friday, whatever it might be. And we start sending something out, and then we play with it. So it's what's going to be the content for your newsletter. If you don't like to write, then it's not going to be a content heavy newsletter. It's probably going to be more of a resource heavy newsletter. Here's some tools and tips and quotes. I work with a nutritionist, and so there's always a couple of recipes in there from her, and they're always popular. I just sent her notes about that, saying, hey, your recipe click rate was really awesome. Everybody's a little different, but we figure out what goes into your newsletter, and then I manage that process for you. I don't write your content. You don't want that. I write like I talk. And not everybody appreciates that. Figure out what goes into your newsletter. I review it. I build the template. I test the links. I make sure everything works. I make sure there's no bugs or glitches. I make sure the subject line matches. And if we are automatically posting it to Facebook and Twitter, I make sure that's all set up. And then about a week after the newsletter goes out, I send you an email with a recap of what happened. Hey, we had an awesome open rate. Let's try this again. This many people unsubscribed, which is okay. And that's, I feel like, the therapist with the unsubscribe option for folks of, it's okay when people unsubscribe for your newsletter, right? You unsubscribe from newsletters. We started this off by talking about how you get so many that you don't read. It just means it's not the right fit for them right now. And that's okay. We talk about your click rate. What did people click on? What do people find interesting today? And then we play with it. So we can say, hey, okay, we thought Thursdays at 6 a.m. were a great time for you, but After 6 months, we're discovering that's dropping off. So let's try Tuesday. Play around with that deliverability to figure out when does your audience like to read the newsletter? And it's not when do you want to read the newsletter, it's when does your audience want to read the newsletter?
Are you testing out subject lines as well, or just the timing of the...
We can test out subject lines. And for some things, we will test that out. If we're having a hard time with open rates, we will test out send times, deliver subject lines, different click-through things, days of the week, time of days, all sorts of fun stuff that we can play with to dial it in and really make sure that the right people are getting it at the right time.
I've heard that certain words, or even the amount of words that you have in a subject line, will have some sort of effect on people if they're going to open it or not.
My clients are sending to their audience. They know these people, right? It's the name that it's coming from that's the most important thing. And then the subject line tells you what this newsletter is about. And we don't use gotcha subject lines. There's nothing I hate worse than a gotcha subject line. Something else to consider is that a good open rate is between 20 and 30%. A good click rate is 2%.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. So if you are expecting everybody to open it and then go somewhere else, that's not happening. So you need to put as much as you possibly can into that newsletter. If it's starting a blog post and then sending them to your blog to finish reading it, of the 100 people that you sent it to and the 30 that opened it, 3 are gonna, no, not even, right?
So what are your thoughts on curated content to send that out in your newsletter?
I love it.
Oh,
I think it's awesome. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. What is helpful for your audience? What is going to make them say, you are the person I want to do business with? When it comes time to look for a new CPA, I'm calling Heather because she doesn't just reach out to me when she's selling me something. She's always helping me figure out stuff and start to think about things that I don't want to think about. So if you're sending out regular updates and just, hey, this is something you need to be considering. Here's something over here you should think about. And also shiny puppy over here or whatever it is, being your quirky self. I think that's more important than having to deliver original content all the time.
Sometimes some of the best content I see on these newsletters are the curated stuff. I do want to ask you about Emerge Oregon, running for office. Tell me about this. I saw this on your website or a newsletter, but what is that all about?
After the 2016 election, decided that I wasn't going to sit on the sidelines anymore. And so I got involved in my community. I live in Hillsboro, Oregon, which I believe to be the best city on earth. I have never loved where I live as much as I love living in Hillsboro. And I get that face from people a lot. Like, really? Hillsboro? Isn't it just a farm town? No. It is not. It is an amazing city. And a friend of mine was running for city council, and I said, that seems interesting to me. I became her campaign manager, and we worked out amazingly well together. Yeah, she's, still one of my best friends. We've known each other for 6 weeks when she asked me to be her campaign manager. We were taking a class together through the city, and she was participating in Emerge Oregon. And so after we talked about it, and I still liked local government and kind of the experience of helping her get elected and working with her. And so I participated, I was in the 2019 Emerge Oregon class. And Emerge is a progressive women candidate training program. So over the course of 7 months, once a month, used to meet in person. And one Saturday a month for 8 hours, you go and you learn how to run for office. You build your list. You figure out who you need to be connecting with. You learn everything you need to know about how to best run for office and knowing the right race at the right time that's right for your life.
Wow, that is so cool. How long has this been going on?
We were in the 10th class. So it's 11 years. So the class of 2020 was the 11th year. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's a national organization. So if you're interested in getting connected and running for office at some point and you identify as a female, Emerge Oregon, check out Emerge in your state to see if they have a chapter. There's 30 some chapters over the country. So most states have it.
Now, are you planning on running for office?
I am. I plan to run for city council. And the way Hillsboro is set up is that we have wards. So there are 6 city councilors and a mayor, and there are 2, the wards are geographically laid out. And so there are 2 representatives per ward. The friend who I helped get elected is one in the same ward as me. So probably not a good idea to run against her. And then there is a gentleman in our ward who is running for re-election this year, 2020. And then there are term limits. So the plan would be that in 4 years, when he has vacated his seat, that I would run for office. So in the meantime, you just build your resume, right? What are the things you need to be doing? So helping other campaigns, volunteering, connecting in the community, being on some boards and getting active there. The way to go about that.
And you'll have the best email campaign.
Obviously. A friend of mine is running for city council in her town, a fellow graduate of last year's class. And that was my donation to the campaign, was getting her email marketing set up.
Wow.
No, that was a big gift. So not everybody gets that gift from me.
Before we wrap up, I do want to ask you, your dogs are named after Cheers characters.
Yes.
Can you tell me about the story behind that?
Yeah. So our first yellow dog was Hank, and we got Hank from the Seattle Humane Society, and he was a big yellow lab. He was big and blonde, and so the Humane Society had called him Hulk, and we kept calling him Hank. And so we thought, Hank, big yellow dog, good farm dog name. And we like a good old man name for our dogs. And then my husband and I had always decided that at some point we wanted a dog named Norm. We just were like, it's Cheers, it's fun, Norm. Everybody's excited when you run in the room. And then Hank passed away shortly after we moved to Oregon 5.5 years ago. And then a few months later, a little yellow lab became available. We found on Pet Finder from a little rescue in Salem, Oregon. And he showed up and my husband went, this is a Norm. And I go, yeah, this is a Norm. And so then the joke became, when are you getting Cliff? So last year, Cliff, a chocolate lab puppy, arrived in our home. And he is a lovely dog, and we will never get a puppy again. And so they're a lot of work. I highly recommend rescuing like a 2 or 3 year old dog who's chilled a little bit. But it was a good reminder that not having children was a good choice for us, and that just the dogs was okay. So yes, Norm and Cliff.
That's cute.
Yeah, but they're pretty fun dogs, and loving quarantine, and that my husband and I are both home all day, every day.
That's so nice. I've got cats and they love the fact that we're home as well. Before we wrap up, I want you to have an opportunity to tell people how they can get a hold of you and they can work with you and all of that.
Sure. So the best way to connect with me is on my website. I'm at yellowdogconsulting.com, and you can download my free marketing calendar or subscribe on my website. I also have my social media links there. I am pretty active on Twitter at EJ Case. And on Instagram, I'm on Instagram as EJ Case as well, if you want to keep tabs on Norm and Cliff. And I also am on Instagram as at Yellow Dog Consulting, if you just want to know when I've got blog post updates and I'm doing work stuff. I try and keep all my work things there. And then I also have my kick-ass follow-up templates. And so if follow-up is a challenge for you, there are the kick-ass follow-up templates that you can download on my website. So use the code NORM and you'll get 50% off your follow-up templates on my website at yellowdogconsulting.com.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. This has been so awesome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Hey, this is Heather. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. If you found value in the show, I'd really appreciate it if you gave me a rating on iTunes, or just simply tell a friend about it. And if you're interested in learning more about my profit advising and coaching, please set up a discovery call by using the link in the show notes. All right, thanks so much and see you next time.